Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Gallant. Welcome to another Fuzzy Slipper edition of Cape Conversations. I'm so glad to be with you today. I can't wait to talk with my guest, John Weltman, who is doing True for Sandwich Arts Alliance in June. So come along and let's have another Cape Conversation. Hi, everybody. I am so excited today to be with John Weltman, famous, fabulous actor here on the Cape. And he's talking to us today all about the Sandwich Arts Alliance presentation of True, about Truman Capote. And I've had the pleasure of seeing it in another location, and it is fantastic. So, John, welcome. Welcome to Cape Conversations.
Thank you very much, Melinda. It's nice to be here.
So, John, how did you get started doing? I know you've done a lot of theater. However, how did you get started in True? Because it's such an unusual show.
It's a show I've known since it came out in 1990. I actually went to see it with Robert Morse on Broadway, and it was phenomenal. He won a Tony Award for the performance. And I would have said up there with Hal Holbrook and Mark Twain and Julie Harris in Belle of Amherst is one of the great one-man shows that exists. Extremely well written. This one happened to have been written about 2/3 by Truman Capote's own words. And so I liked it tremendously. One of the first shows I did hear back on 2017 on the Cape was at the Falmouth Theatre Guild called La Cage aux Folles, which many people know as the Birdcage, but it's the musical version written by Jerry Herman, who did Hello, Dolly and Mame. And I played the lead. Carol McManus, who I had heard tell was the best director, came up to me afterwards telling me how wonderful I was and would I be willing to do True. And I knew the show. I was extremely honored that me, but for two of the gayest parts on the Cape, on the existence of theater. And the second was I had just done a lead and 10 songs and a good almost half the show, but I wasn't quite ready to go into a part where I had memorized every single line for an hour and 45 minutes. So could we work up to it? And we worked together about 3 years ago on a play that I selected that she loved called Breaking the Code, which is about Alan Turing, who is the founder of the computer and is now on the 50-pound note in the UK, who was accused of breaking the British moral code of consensual homosexual sex in his own residence, reporting a break-in that had occurred by a lover of his. He had also been famous for breaking the Enigma code and saving the world from the Germans during World War II. There's a movie called The Imitation Game, which I don't like as well. The play was starring Derek Jacobi, and I'd actually seen it on the West End stage. And
I love Derek Jacobi.
And there was a movie made of it that's also very good. And so I said, let's start with that because I'm in second for a Broadway World for, which was lovely. We did that. The Black Box is sort of a lead into this.
Right. So you worked on it for what, 4 years, maybe a total?
Oh, not quite. So what happened was our plan had been to present it in June of 2020. So Carol said, look, whenever you're memorizing this level of lines, you're going to need a good 9 months or so to prep it. What I'd like to do is before you disappear off the Cape and head up to your house in Vermont to block it for you. And then you spend September to April memorizing it. And then come back in April, we'll get it all ready for June. So I hit the 3/4 of the play memorized by March 12th, when everything on Broadway and everything even in Vermont shut down because of COVID. And, had conversations with David Keene, head of the Katuitt Center, as well as Carol. And he was like, well, we can push it off till August if it's not done by June, blah, blah, blah. So I decided my April 27th date of memorizing it, I would still go ahead and do, and we'd see what happened. And of course, COVID didn't really disappear, as I just am recovering from it now. And it's my first bout with it, but in any event, the plays nevertheless didn't start performing until we actually put on True. It was the first show
Wow.
the Tour Center for the Arts after COVID, and it was last summer in August, which was almost, was literally 2 years to the date from when I had begun. So I had to keep it in my mind by basically once a week, usually on a drive, I would run through it. And so that happened. And I had been asked, because I do have a house in Stowe, Vermont, by a friend of mine up there, if I'd present it there, because a number of my friends weren't able to get down to the Cape, especially during COVID, to see the show. And I agreed. And I think we do it this fall. And she said, no, I want to wait for the snowbirds to get back. I'm like, well, the snowbirds are still here and I don't want to keep it in my head for another year. But she said, no, it doesn't work in our schedule. How about next July? And I said, okay. And in the interim, Sandwich said, would I do it June 10th through 12th at the Sandwich Town Hall for the Arts Alliance? And I said, I'd love to. I mean, I'm keeping it in my head anyway for Stowe. So literally once a week, I go through it in my head. And, it's remarkable how well I know the show. I can probably do the whole thing blithered out of my head in about 25 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
But I also spend time, doing the voice and really taking the time to do it right. And Carol and I are starting up rehearsals next
You
week.
definitely submerged your whole being into the character. There's no doubt about that. I've never seen such a great characterization of a human being that had lived like you did, Truman Capote. And here's the thing, we all know who he was, we all heard him, we all saw him on talk shows, we knew him, and you became him. There's just no doubt about it. You were absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you. I mean, one of the biggest struggles that Carol and I have had and continue to have is the voice. And I spent a great deal of time after memorizing the show, really getting down the voice the way Bobby Morse didn't attempt to do the voice at all.
Right.
But when Philip Seymour Hoffman did the movie Capote, he did. And Carol's comment to me was, if you do that voice for an hour and 45 minutes, people will die. And it will be very, very hard to listen to. If you look at the movie Capote, he's in about 40 minutes of a 2-hour and 20-minute long movie, and a little more tolerable. I have always felt like I really wanted A, to show off that I could, and B, to feel like that was who he was. And what has been interesting is, as more and more people have come to see it, and we've had Sunday talkbacks, which we will do again on the Sunday 2:00 performance of the 12th, many people have said that differentiation between a variation on the voice, using in part my voice, his voice, but slightly toned down, and then utilizing the voice, particularly when he's either talking about his voice or he's recognized on the telephone, shows that it almost was a put on, that he's almost talking in his head to a room full of people, but it's a put on. It's not who he was. And they like that. So we are still struggling. I've said to her, gee, one of these remaining 5 performances, I'd like to be mic'd, because he mumbled. He was very nasal. He was very atonal. And I'd love to give a try sometime to see whether, I can maintain the voice and how that comes across to the audience.
Sure.
But she's fighting me and saying, no, not even once.
Have you been to the Sandwich Town Hall? Oh, we got a little frozen here. There we
I
go.
can't hear you.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I think we got frozen. That's all right.
We did.
Everybody's used to it with Zooms on wherever you display them. Everybody's used to
Well,
having.
whenever you get frozen, you just have to let it go.
Yes, yes. So I was asking, have you been to the Sandwich Town Hall?
Yes, I have.
It's
And
a
I actually went to see my friend Linda Monchick
ah,
do Belle of Amherst there to get a sense of whether we wanted to do this on the ground floor so that my interaction with the audience would be more like it was in the black box, which I really enjoyed. I've done a lot of theater and I've never looked in audiences' eyes, never spoken directly to the audience, but this is so much communicating directly with the audience that I felt like I'd lose something if I went up on the stage. Bobby Morse did it on the stage, and I don't think that's an issue, but I think after sort of looking at the light situation, the projection situation, everything else, it was better to decide to do it on the stage. But there may be a couple of moments where I will come down the steps and go out to the audience. We haven't decided that yet. It's going to be a little easier in Stowe because there's actually a staircase that comes descending right from the center of the stage, so I can walk out in the audience and back up. That's not as easy in Sandwich.
no, it's not, because you have to go through a doorway
You have to go through the side.
to get there. Yeah,
Side.
on the side.
Yeah.
So John, how long have you been doing these things? Forever in your life?
How long have I been doing?
Theater,
Sorry, say it again.
theater.
Oh, well, I think my first major role was as one of the weavers in The Emperor's New Clothes in 1970 in the Boston Children's Theater stage, which was then on Clarendon Street at New England Life Hall between Berkeley and Commonwealth Avenue and Boylston Street. I did theater from 1970 to about 1979. My last performance was as Emery and the Boys in the Band at the Yale Dramat, and then did not do it for 36 years
Amazing.
until I picked it up, got a role in Art. All three of the leads are leads, although I ended up playing the part that won the Tony for the actor who played it there, and Yvonne. And it's a play about a guy who buys a white painting with white lines, and his best friend calls it a piece of shit. And the other best friend tries to be nice to both of them and ends up getting his ears boxed in because he's trying to straddle a line that's impossible to straddle.
Right. So when you did that show, that was here on the Cape, right? That was at
Correct.
Cotuit?
Everything I've done has been either at the Cotuit Center for the Arts, either in the black box or the main stage, or at the Falmouth Theater Guild. I ventured out for, I think once to something at Cape Rep, but I haven't really gotten to know some of the other theaters, and I'd love to. I may go up. I'm sort of debating a Christmas show for either Sound of Music, which is going to be at Cotuit Center for the Arts, or Matilda, which is going to be in Norwell at the Company Theater. There are a couple roles in each of those that I might like. So for the fall, it's a play.
My grandson, I think, is doing a show. He's a senior. He's off to Tisch next year, New York University, and he's doing a show at in Norwell.
Sorry,
my grandson.
Who is this? Oh, wonderful. What's he doing?
He's doing a brand new play. It's a relatively new play in Norwell at the Company Theater, I think, called Pilgrims. I think it's new or something. He also played the lead in Rock of Ages there as well last summer.
I don't see that many shows there. My nephew was just Gavroche in Les Miserables.
Sure.
He did there. It was all a high school and younger production. And I will tell you, it is probably the single best piece of community theater I've ever seen. I've seen Les Mis on Broadway. I've seen it in the West End. I've seen the movie. I love the story. I love the music. It has never moved me. And I was in tears like 4 times and sitting there going, how did they get these unbelievable singers out of high schoolers for this production?
I know. They are a wonderful theater
really,
company.
really good.
They're really good. Yes. Well, and they're good and training them as well, I think, which is so
Absolutely. But
important.
it's not all kids. I mean, there
No,
was
it's
a
not. He
adult
was
production of Something Rotten recently, which they did a great job
You're
at it.
right. Rock of Ages last summer had mostly adults. He was probably one of the youngest. He was 17 at the time. He was the youngest one in the show with that lead, but he looks older. So, and he had the long hair. So, that's why he got the part. That's what I told him. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, you have to look the part. I can't play Maria in the Sound of Music.
there you go.
Not gonna do that.
That's true. So, John, so what are the dates again in Sandwich for Sandwich
Well, I mean,
Arts
we do have
Alliance?
this thing called backwards that we do it. Sorry?
What is the date again for the Sandwich Arts Alliance True presentation?
Okay, so it will be performed Friday evening, the 10th, I believe it's 7 p.m. there. And then Saturday evening, the 11th at 7 p.m. and then an afternoon matinee at 2. There will be an intermission. And so expect to spend 2 hours. And then we'll do a talk back usually of about 15, 20 minutes after the Sunday performance, which I always find those to be really wonderful because people don't just want to know how I got into the character, but they want to know about the character because it's such a rich story in a moment of his life that encapsulates the entirety of his life, that I think it brings up a lot of questions about who was this man and what made him tick. And I've grown to know a great deal about him through the
I bet.
performing of it.
Sure you have. So John, so you're going to go out for some other things. You have to be above auditioning because you do everything so well. I would just think they would call you up and say, John, we need you to do this.
That's not true. I certainly
Well,
have
I
been
would.
asked to do specific parts. When I did Breaking the Code, Carol had already pre-selected me to play Alan Turing, and so we were doing the selection of the rest of the cast together. When I did True, certainly this was something I didn't audition for.
Right.
Carol had asked me to do. However, recently I tried out to play Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast opposite my nephew, who I said just played Gavroche, and he's playing Chip, and we're still performing that at the Falmouth Theatre Guild. So it depends upon the show. We do something called Broadway Backwards every year at the Catuit Center for the Arts, and I don't audition for that. This is our 3rd year doing it, and I've been in every year. But it depends on the situation. My friend Tim Highstead, who unfortunately passed away from COVID,
I know.
in that show Art with me, his last show, he directed the She Loves Me, and he asked me to be the waiter in Romantic Atmosphere, and I'm like, oh, it's during my ski season and I don't want to do this. And he's like, and it's a little part and I don't know, and he's like, oh, John, you're so perfect for this. I just want it. We'll put all the rehearsals in the last 10 days and that's all. I'm like, oh, all right. You and you've got everybody else from the cast of Art, and it's kind of like this recreation. And then what does the Cape Cod Times do? I don't know. They've been very, very nice to me, and now that I say it, they won't be anymore. But they literally come up with this thing where John Weltman steals the show as the waiter in Romantic Atmosphere. I'm like, I'm in 5 minutes of this show. You can't do this to me. I have other cast members who are doing a really good job.
Well, John, as you know, there are no small parts, only small actors. So you see, you stepped up.
I tend to steal the stage, whether I'm the whole show or a small part of it. So there you go.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, John, where do you live on the Cape? Do you live down Cape, or do you live in Catuit, or?
I live in Mashpee.
Oh, you do?
And truth be told, I only came here sort of. We had been thinking about moving to the town that I grew up in, Cohasset, from the town that my kids went to school in, Milton, when my dad was still around, and found a house we really loved. We had planned to sell our house to a family from Cohasset who was moving to Milton. At the last minute, they decided not to get it. And my husband was like, oh, the idea of a house on the water would be so lovely. And I was like, okay, I've always loved having a house in the water. He said, but couldn't we maybe spend the differential between the two? And I was like, yeah, we can find a house in the water, you know.
Yeah.
And he was going to Mashpee, and I literally had been to Mashpee once, to the paparazzi in for a wedding. I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, if it's going to be a Cape, let's do Truro or Wellfleet or something, you know, that I know. I don't know this area of the Cape. And he found this house, and we walked in and literally bought every single stick of furniture, everything the woman owned with the house. And her name was Diane Martin, mine's John Weltman. And I just turned her paper towels upside down. Because she'd only spent like 3 weeks a year here. I slept in her sheets the first night without even washing them, and have literally moved into this place with absolute adoring it. It's now my principal residence. So I've since sold Cohasset, and I've been buy something there, and ultimately and just live here permanently. So I love it.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you
it's
have a home in Vermont as well.
I do as well, which I'm there for the winter for the ski season. But
Excellent.
I have this year, I did an 8-day-a-week thing where I didn't realize that Joan, who's directing Beauty and the Beast, would start rehearsals in February. I figured it'd be mid-March. And so when she did that, and it was 4 days a week, I'd be like here 4 days and somehow managed to still get 4 days of skiing a week in by leaving early Friday morning and doing a ski in the morning on Monday before I get back for Monday evening rehearsals, because I didn't want to give up my ski season.
Oh,
So
well, that's
it was really
great.
fun. I think that
Yes.
show has been fantastic too.
Yeah, well, I know that they've sold out, I think, of almost everything,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah, they
So,
have. And we had a delay of a weekend, and everybody was still able to come back because
oh,
6 of
that's
us
great.
caught COVID at the last performance.
Oh,
So we'll be performing Saturday and Sunday this
well,
weekend.
we all of us wonder if this will ever end, I think, at this point.
Well, having just had it, I can tell you that it's not as horrible if you've been vaccinated. I worry for those who haven't, but I had been vaccinated 3 times, and it really was a 3-day, wow, that really knocked me out. 4 and 5, it began to recover, and now on whatever I'm on, day 9, I, feel I have a little hoarse voice still,
Yeah.
but most of all.
Excellent. Well, you look good. You don't look like you've been sick at all. So there you go. um, so Carol McManus has been directing you, and Carol didn't join us today. However, she just, sings your praises up one side and down the other, how wonderful you are and wonderful to work with, just so you know. And
Well, just so you know, she and I'm probably going to get killed for this, but she's absolutely my favorite director on the
oh,
Cape.
she's
I have
wonderful.
never, I find I like to be told what to do,
Right.
and and I will struggle with a director over their vision, as I've indicated with the voice thing here. But for the most part, I find that Carol is brilliant in assessing a character and advising an actor how to perform a character, even sometimes to the point of telling you how to say lines. And when I was being trained at Boston Children's Theater, there was a woman, Adele Faina, who was there for about 50 years. It's absolutely just lit into people if they missaid a line or didn't understand how it fit into a character. And I really love the way she gets me to perform something. And David Keane, who's seen the show as well on Broadway, commented when he got to the end of it is, wow, I didn't realize the show was that depressing. And it is a very, very powerful ending. And I don't think Bobby Morse played it the way he played it, but I believe the lines are appropriate for the way in which we performed it. In fact, I was my biggest struggle was how to handle the end of the show. And I think together we found something really, really powerful to talk about, and where Capote was, because you haven't asked this, but I think it's a really important thing to say. This show takes place on December 23 and 24 of 1975,
Right.
A few months after he released the first chapter of a book he'd been working on for 20 years. It was a great favorite of New York's wealthy elite. And he had written a tell-all book that was really, in his concept, more of a Swan's Way or a Vanity Fair commentary on the rich. And lives. And I think when you're an insider, as Proust was for Remembrances of Things Past or Swan's Way, it's okay. But when you're an outsider, it's not so okay. And these people turned on him. And he lost a tremendous amount of friends. And it was sort of the pivotal moment in life where he went downhill and became very much of an alcoholic and a
Right.
drug abuser and ended up dying at a very young age. And so it starts sort of upbeat and not believing that these people are going to turn on him long, and it ends on a very, very powerful note of, how his whole life
Right.
has come together to not teach him the lessons that he should have learned. So I think it's a wonderful piece of theater.
Well, what brought him to such prominence? Wasn't it In Cold Blood? Wasn't that the
Well,
book that brought
he
him?
actually wrote, I always think of In Cold Blood as what brought him to prominence, but he'd already written Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Oh, that's right. Of course.
which was no small worked on for in Other Voices is really what brought him to prominence. And some of that was that he had this very risque back cover of him in a sexualized gayish position that
Right.
shocked the world. And then the book was extremely well written. He wrote a lot like Eudora Welty. He was a very Southern writer in a lot of ways, but always about personal things that he connected to. But he could write in so many veins. And although there was a tremendous struggle between him and Harper Lee, because she did win the Pulitzer for To Kill a Mockingbird, and Dill is fashioned after him. They were very dear friends. And I think that hurt him. His ability to write in so many genres. Breakfast at Tiffany's is so different than In Cold Blood.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And he studied for 5 years to write In Cold Blood, and it's a mesmerizingly well-written book. Just go back and read the first page or two, and you'll be blown away at how superbly he wrote. And
well, he made you realize these were ordinary people just going about their business, and to have these guys come in and end up killing the entire family, and then how sad their lives were. I mean, there was something, you felt sorry even for the killers, the way he wrote it.
He literally felt himself very much, and this comes out in Capote, connected to these men. I mean, his life was an extraordinarily challenging one, where he was left by his mother after her marriage broke up when he was very young, 4 years old, with her family in a tiny little town in southern Alabama, and really raised for most of the first few years, and then military school age, and then brought back to New York society because she married a wolf. I mean, just literally, he felt like he was just lucky in that he didn't end up a killer himself. He had a lot of really angry, hurt feelings about the way he was raised.
Of course.
And I think that sadness comes out in his writing. It comes out in the way he lived his life, and sort of constantly on the go. Very much upbeat, very funny, laughing things off, when in fact, I think he was crying inside.
Sure. So, John, June 10th, 11th, and 12th, you're going to be portraying Truman Capote in True, directed by Carol McManus. I wish I could come see you, but I'm having knee replacement surgery, so I'm going to be out of commission for a month.
Well, you've seen me once, so
I know, but I could see you twice.
Uh-huh.
This is something I could see again, for sure. You do it so
I have
well.
a number of people who are coming to it, and even my sister asked me last night, has already seen it, whether I thought my 11-year-old nephew, who loves theater and wants to see me, could do it. And I said, yeah, I don't think there's anything inappropriate. It's just heavy.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also, there's a lot of references because he was so connected to Ava Gardner and from, so the 60-year-old crowd is going to really love it.
That's true.
But I've had a number of 20+ crowd come and really see it as a vivid portrayal of someone certainly they've heard of or they know from reading.
Well, I just want to say thank you. We've come to the end of our time. Thank you for joining me today on Cape Conversations. I really appreciate it. And I wish you double break of legs for this
Thank
show.
you. I just want to attribute this performance to Bobby Morse, whose bedroom I grew up in on Hammond
Yeah,
Street in Newton, and who although you met him personally, I
I
didn't.
did. I
I think
did.
he's a phenomenal performer, and I was delighted to have seen
Yeah.
him in this and other things. So,
Well,
sorry
he
he
was
passed
certainly a
away.
great one, and of course, he got his starring role by being in Mad Men. That's how people today remember him. Go
Okay,
figure.
but I think of him as the original J. Pierpont Finch from
Right.
How to
How to
Succeed in Business
succeed.
Without Really
Right.
Crying in
Right.
the movie
I
version of it.
agree. I agree. So again, John, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good to
Take
see
care.
you.
Thanks to you too. Bye.
Wow, John Weltman. What a great fellow. Oh my goodness. What an actor. He does all these things. It's so exciting. He'll be performing True in June and at the Sandwich Town Hall, which is so historic. It's going to be a great time. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on another Cape Conversations.
The views expressed in this program are the views of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the SCTV staff or board of directors.